You notice it slowly, almost accidentally, the way you notice a faint hum in a room only after it stops. One day you look around and realize you no longer feel stitched into the world you've been moving through. Conversations drift past you like distant traffic. Laughter sounds rehearsed. Even the places you once called familiar feel slightly out of focus, as if someone has turned the dial just enough to blur the edges. Nothing is wrong, not exactly, but nothing fits quite right anymore. You sit in a crowded waiting room, screens flickering on the walls, voices rising and falling in quick bursts of chatter. People are performing small, ordinary performances they hardly recognize as such. The polite smile, the practiced complaint, the way they lean forward when the moment demands enthusiasm. You see it all with a clarity you didn't ask for, a clarity that leaves you strangely tired. You're there among them, but something in you stands a few steps back, watching. You notice how easily others slip into their roles, how they become who the moment requires, how they adjust their tone, their posture, their mask, without even thinking. Once, you did this too. You carried whole versions of yourself in your pocket, ready to unfold whichever one someone needed. You were the helpful one, the calm one, the agreeable one, the one who didn't cause trouble. It was a kind of survival, though you rarely named it that. When you stop playing along, when the inner machinery goes quiet, the world around you keeps moving at its old speed, and suddenly the lights feel too bright, the chatter feels too sharp, the expectations press against your skin like wool in summer. You're not angry. You're not grieving. You're simply awake in a room where everyone else is still dreaming. There's a peculiar gentleness in this kind of disconnection. You're not looking down on anyone. You're not wishing they would change. You're just seeing what you used to miss. The strain in people's eyes, the tension in their shoulders, the way they cling to their parts because letting go would mean facing themselves. You recognize it because you lived inside that same tension for years. So you step back, not dramatically, not with a declaration, just a quiet inward leaning, a soft retreat from the noise. You find yourself drawn to silence the way thirsty roots seek water. A quiet porch after dusk, a parked car with the engine off, a long hallway where no one expects anything from you. In these small pockets of stillness, you feel something loosen. And in that loosened space, in that barely audible pause, you sense the first breath of awareness, steady, unforced, utterly your own. There is an ache that arrives quietly, the way evening light slips across a room without asking permission. You feel it when you try to speak, gently, honestly, and the words fall flat before they reach anyone. You're sitting at the same table as before, nodding at the same familiar faces. Something has shifted. You speak from a deeper place now, and they answer from the surface. Their replies skim the water, while yours come from the deeper current underneath. And in that small gap, barely noticeable to them, you feel the distance widen. It isn't their fault. We all wake up at different hours. Some stir slowly, some never stir at all. There's a quiet grief in realizing you can no longer return to the old rhythm. You try. You soften your voice. You trim your thoughts. You offer the smallest truth you can, hoping it won't overwhelm the room. But even then, people look at you with that puzzled smile, the one that says they heard the words, but missed the meaning. This is when you start seeing more than you wish to. The tension behind someone's practiced optimism, the fear behind someone's anger, the loneliness behind a loud story told for the third time. You see it, you know it, you carry it for a moment, and then you withdraw. Not out of judgment, because you've learned that naming these things aloud only creates more misunderstanding. So you hold your tongue. You sit with your own knowing. You let the moment pass. There are times when you feel like a person speaking in a room full of people wearing headphones. Your voice moves through the air, soft and true, but no one turns, no one hears, and you're left with that familiar sensation of talking to a fogged mirror. Your breath leaves a trace, then fades, leaving only your own reflection staring back. We all long to be met. Not applauded, not agreed with, just met. Seen in the quiet way trees recognize each other across a field. But when clarity comes, the longing shifts. You stop expecting others to step into your depth. You stop pushing your truth into spaces not built to hold it. You learn to sit with the unspoken, and in that silent sitting another realization arises. Soft, steady, undeniable. The more awake you are, the fewer stay beside you. There comes a point when the world you once moved through begins to thin, as if a long-held fog is finally lifting. Nothing dramatic happens. No thunderclap, no revelation. Just a slow clearing, the kind that makes you blink, because everything looks the same but feels different. You begin to see the small fractures in people's stories, the quiet tremble beneath their certainty, the way they cling to roles that no longer fit them. And in that seeing, something inside you settles, not with triumph, just with recognition. Clarity has a peculiar temperament. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. It arrives like still water, reflective, undisturbed, honest to the point of discomfort. You look into that water, and the surface does not lie. It shows what is there, the mask, the longing, the fear, the tenderness. And once you learn to read such reflections, you cannot pretend they are ripples or tricks of light. You see what people are trying to hide, sometimes before they know they're hiding it. This is the mechanism no one warns you about. Awareness dissolves illusion, and illusion is the glue that binds most social worlds together. Once the glue softens, you naturally drift to the edges. Not because you wish to leave, not because you think you're above anything, but because false connections cannot hold under the weight of clear seeing. You stand where you always stood. The room rearranges itself around your new vision. Some people sense it before they understand it. They pull back, uncertain. Others become louder in your presence, as if noise could distract them from being seen. A few misinterpret your calm for judgment. Yet beneath all of this movement lies one simple truth. When you stop participating in the shared fog, you no longer belong to its landscape. It feels like walking out of a dim room into bright morning. The light is clean but unforgiving. The sky opens above you with that pale, endless clarity you used to admire in photographs. And while the beauty is real, is the loneliness. Seeing clearly removes the comfort of shadows. It strips away the old companionship of distortion. It leaves you with what is true, and what is left standing when the fog clears is often only yourself. This isn't punishment, and it isn't reward. It is simply the cost of transparency, the quiet equilibrium of perception meeting reality without the insulation of illusion. The pain is real, yes, but so is the steadiness. Awareness may isolate you from others, but it unites you with yourself. And in that union, timeless understanding rises, clarity separates. But it never lies. There comes a day when the quiet inside you stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like a room. Your room, clean, spacious, softly lit. The sorrow that once pressed against your ribs loosens, and you notice, almost with surprise, that you can breathe again. Not the old strained breath, the one you used while performing. A different kind of breath. A steady, unclenched one. The kind that arrives when you're no longer trying to convince the world of anything. You sit in that inner room for a while, unsure if you're hiding or resting. But as the minutes lengthen, and the stillness deepens, you realize you're not withdrawing from life. You're returning to yourself. There's a difference. One collapses inward, the other settles. This is the turning point. The moment you understand that stillness is not apathy. It is simply the absence of unnecessary motion. You begin to notice the old reflex, a tightness in your chest before you speak, the urge to explain, to smooth things over, reassure others that you're still the same. And with a kind of quiet humor, you see how little any of that matters now. You're not cold. You're not aloof. You're just finished. Finished with proving, finished with pleasing, finished with carrying what isn't yours. There is a soft pride in that. Not arrogance, just the dignity of someone who has finally stopped running. Your life takes on a slower rhythm. You pause before reacting. You listen without preparing a reply. You breathe before stepping into a room, and somehow that single breath becomes the difference between being drained and being present. Calmness rises not as a performance, as your natural temperature. People may misread this at first. They might think you've become distant. You smile, because the truth is simpler. You're no longer scattering yourself. You're conserving your warmth for spaces that welcome it. There's a moment, maybe in the early morning, maybe sitting by a window, when light moves across a surface of water and you see your reflection clearly for the first time in years. No distortion, no fog, just the face of someone who finally trusts their own stillness. And in that reflection, you understand something steady and liberating. You no longer need to perform aliveness. You simply live. The breath you release then is not dramatic. It's not triumphant. It's just full, quiet, whole. There is a kind of seeing that no longer demands a response. It arrives after the noise has worn itself out, after the long season of explaining and adjusting and trying to be understood. You notice it one quiet morning. The world moves, and you do not feel compelled to move with it. Not out of indifference, but out of a sober recognition. Most things do not require your participation. You watch life the way you might watch a television with the volume turned off. The images still dance. People gesture, argue, celebrate, collapse. Yet without the soundtrack, everything appears strangely tender, almost comical. You see the gestures for what they are. Movements inside a larger movement, waves in a restless sea. And in seeing them clearly, your own need to react loosens. There is spaciousness in this. A gentle widening around each moment. Forest without footsteps, holding its own silence. You find yourself pausing before responding to others, letting the impulse drift through you like a bird crossing an open sky. Most of the time, the impulse dissolves before it reaches your tongue. Not because you're suppressing anything, but because you realize how little needs to be said. The world has enough noise. It doesn't need yours added to the pile. Silence becomes less an absence and more a kind of knowing, a way of seeing without interfering, a way of participating without disturbing the water. You sit inside conversations the same way you sit beside a still pond, present, alert, untroubled by the need to ripple its surface. People may notice you're quiet, though they often misinterpret it. They think you're withholding something. They imagine you're judging them. The truth is far simpler. You no longer feel compelled to enter every exchange. You no longer chase validation in every room. You've learned that clarity doesn't argue. It observes. Your silence gains weight, but not heaviness. It's the weight of attention. Precise, steady, unreactive. You see humor in the way people cling to their dramas, the way we all mistake our passing moods for eternal truths. You see your own old patterns reflected back, and instead of regret, there's a soft smile. You understand now. In this quiet, the world reveals itself without demanding anything from you. You watch. You breathe. You let life be what it is. From this simple practice, this seeing without reaction, one truth rises, clear as a bell in still air. Silence is the mind returning to its original honesty. There comes a moment, after the long quieting, when something soft begins to move in you again. Not the old urgency, the urge to correct, to guide, to rescue, but something gentler, rounder, almost like warmth returning to a limb that fell asleep. You look at people the way you might look at a distant city, at night, countless windows lit, countless lives unfolding, each one carrying its own small universe of longing and fear. You feel the truth of it without needing to step inside any of those rooms. We begin to understand slowly that most people are not resisting us. They are simply asleep inside their own stories. They move by instinct. They repeat what they've been taught. They cling to the patterns that once protected them. And when we see this clearly, the old frustration dissolves, the anger softens, a quiet compassion takes its place, not pity, not superiority, just recognition. We know what it is to be lost inside a dream because we lived there too. Once we tried to wake people. We offered our clarity too quickly, as if truth were a blanket we could pull over someone else's shoulders. But clarity given without readiness becomes a burden. So now, we watch with a steadier heart. We see the tension behind someone's smile, the fear beneath someone's sharp remark, the exhaustion hiding in their business. And instead of intervening, instead of trying to straighten the crooked path, we allow life to be their teacher. This is the quiet return of empathy, feeling with others, not for them. Standing near without stepping in, holding space without taking control. We start to move through the world like a candle seen through glass, light offered, not imposed. People come close if they choose. They warm their hands if they wish. But the flame remains steady, neither reaching out nor pulling away. There's a strange unity in this distance. We begin to see ourselves in everyone, their confusion, their defenses, their small triumphs, their hidden tenderness. We recognize the same human ache, wearing different faces. And the need to change anyone fades, replaced by a simple willingness to understand them as they are. In this understanding, something connects, not loudly, not dramatically, but the way two quiet streams meet in the dark and continue as one, a still, effortless compassion that asks nothing and honors everything. There is a moment near the end of all this. Not an ending in the dramatic sense, but an ending the way night ends, when the first pale line of dawn touches the horizon. Nothing announces itself. Nothing declares that you've arrived. You simply wake one morning and notice that the world no longer feels like something you must brace yourself against. The quiet inside you has settled into its rightful place. It's no longer a refuge you hide in, nor a shield you use to keep others away. It's become the atmosphere of your being, gentle, breathable, transparent. You move through rooms without performing. You listen without anticipating. You speak only when words feel natural, as effortless as an exhale through an open window. Awakening, you realize, was never a climb. It was a return, a homecoming to the part of you that never needed applause, never needed permission, never asked to be anything other than itself. And now, after the long path of seeing and unseeing, of stepping back and stepping inward, you rest in that truth without effort. Solitude no longer feels like separation. It feels like the quiet sea before anyone touches it. Calm, complete, reflecting the sky without trying to hold it. You understand now that being awake doesn't lift you above anyone. It only removes the weight you once carried, the weight of pretending, the weight of defending, the weight of fighting your own knowing. There's a soft tenderness in this stage. You look at the world the way you look at dawn light on a familiar road. Nothing changed, yet everything revealed. People move through their days as they always have. You no longer need them to understand you, nor do you strain to understand them. You meet life as it meets you, simply, quietly, without negotiation. This is the quiet return, the merging of self with world, not by dissolving into it, by no longer resisting it. The air feels easier. The sky seems wider. Even ordinary moments carry a faint shimmer, as if touched by something ancient and patient. You breathe, and the breath is enough. You stand, and standing is enough. You live, and living is enough. And when the final stillness settles around you, it comes not as revelation, but as recognition. Soft, steady, complete, you are home.